Welcome back to the Inside Edge. I'm Bob McElligott, joined by Jody, Shelley, and we're very pleased right now to be joined by the president of hockey operations of the Blue Jackets, John Davidson. And I can't believe that you had time to talk to us because you're back here in Calgary where I know you're a big deal a lot of places, but you're a really big deal here in Calgary. It's a homecoming for you.
No, it's nice to get back here and see family. That's what's good about it. So the credit card takes a beating, but that's okay. I don't mind doing that at all. And, just the timing of this season, because it's the holiday season, Christmas around the corner, it's nice to get back here for that alone, to see the family and the young ones, the nephews and nieces and all that type of thing. So it's good. This is a great city. Calgary's a city where I'm not from. I was born in Ottawa, Ontario. My father was in the RCMP, and we happened to be stationed there. But I spent the majority of my life growing up here in Calgary, and it's a marvelous city. It's an outdoors city. People have a blast. The mountains are down the road. It's a great place.
There's a lot of talk every year about the NHL schedule and why this trip is this way, this trip is that way. And a couple of weeks ago, we just played 5 games in 7 days, right? But this one is spread out. I thought maybe they accidentally gave us the Rangers schedule on this trip where we're not playing 3 games in 5 days, actually get to spread it over 7 days. So it is kind of nice in to have this one in the middle and get a chance to spend a little bit of time in this city.
Well, I can't believe you guys aren't going skiing. Huh? Banff's not that far. I could set up a helicopter for you. Go up a helicopter, go to the glaciers. You guys would have a blast. You got to get at it.
Let's go, Bob.
That'll do it for this interview. Thanks, Shady. But let's talk about the team because, we bug you so many times when things are not going well. We always bring you in and get you to talk about it, and you're great about that. Hey, now it's the shoes on the other foot. Things are going very well for this franchise, and we'd just like you to talk about that a little bit and how pleased you are with the fact that you guys didn't really make any changes over the summer. You decided to go with this group, basically, and then bring in some youth from Cleveland. And to this point, it has paid off. How good does that feel?
Well, getting back to the initial part of the question about talking when things weren't going as well, what through experience I can say this is you have to go through it. You have to when you're trying to rebuild or build an organization. When you were in last place to start with, that's a tough thing to do. Now you can do a lot of quick fixing and try to get there and hang on, but if you don't do it right, your base for your franchise isn't going to be very good for too long. And then you would have given up your assets for short-term fixes. So you've got to go through it. And I know the people around you want more and they want it quicker and they want it now. If you don't do it right, and it takes time in our game to do it right, then it just doesn't work the way it should work. So I got that. We did it in St. Louis, so I know that there's going to be people unhappy with this and that. I know you're bringing players in. I know you're moving people out that have been here for a while that are good people. But you have to – they weren't winning. So you have to rebuild it, and you have to go through it. And to see our team now – last year was certainly a test because that season was a lost season in many, many ways until Cleveland decided to win a championship, and that was spectacular, and it really helped us. So we've got kind of like second chance guys that didn't play well last year who have really done well. The Folinos and the Bobrovskis, they're good players. For some reason, they didn't have a good year. And then you sprinkle in 4 or 5 rookies that are playing every night that are not just guys you're wondering if they're going to play. They're playing and they're making major contributions. Now you start to feel that we're going in the right direction. We're getting there. We're over the hump for sure. Can we sustain it? Can we deal with injuries when they come along? Can we deal with tougher parts of the schedule that's ahead of us? That's where we're going with all this. And continue to draft well and continue to develop in Cleveland. Our scouts deserve a lot of credit for what they've done. And these guys, here we are in Calgary and Edmonton, and it's cold. We had about 4 of our guys last night 3 hours north of Edmonton in Bonnyville, Alberta, doing a Junior A challenge, and they ended up driving back, got into Edmonton at 3 a.m, and they're up today flying to wherever they fly to next. It's a tough business and a tough job, but they're doing a great work for us, and we're sort of clicking all over the place. I also credit the ownership for staying with us and having an understanding that if you're going to go and try different ways every 2 years, it's not going to work. You got to stay with it through the tough times. And then our management group with Yarmo and Bill and Basil now, they've all done a good job. They've worked hard at this.
I'm amazed at that because to look at the draft last year, and I've spoke with you about this, and free agency and let it go by and be so frustrated. But it is amazing to look back and think of what these guys have been through and how they got embarrassed last year as a team, and you stick with them. Now, the culture change that you've been trying to make here, is it on track? Do you see it right now? I mean, I think we do, but where is it in your eyes?
You see, here I am talking to you, and you're a former player, and you've been with different organizations, and we've talked. I mean, I can sense that you sense it. I certainly sense it. I know it. I've been around long enough in this game since 1973, and I've done some good things. I've done some things that aren't so good. I've been with teams that didn't make playoffs. I've been with teams that have played in the Stanley Cup Finals. You sense how a room should be. Mark Messier talked about it greatly in depth, actually, about the '94 team in New York that won the Cup. First time they won a Cup in 54 years, and you've got to create the right culture almost before skill. They're close, hand in hand, but if you don't have the culture, I can remember being with in New York. We had $80 million payroll there, and I was the broadcaster, and didn't make the playoffs 6 straight years. Because that doesn't win. That doesn't guarantee you anything. You have to have a team. You have to have the sum of your parts. You have to have the culture in the room. After the game in Edmonton, I talked to Brandon Dubinsky, and he was saying, we were a little slow in the first period, couldn't get our legs, but we knew when we were tied 1-1 going into the third that we were going to win. That's the mindset. But you just don't get that. You've got to go through everything to get there. Conditioning level. Yeah, there's by far the best conditioning team I've seen since I've been here. And veteran players being told that they better be ready to play this season after last season. If not, there's young people that are going to go right on by you. And that's our future. So it's all working hand in hand, and it's been good in a lot of respects.
To add on that, how impressed are you with Sergei Bobrovsky as a former goaltender, and to watch this kid, this young man, and how he approaches the game and his job on a daily basis? And that's a big part of leadership for this group, too.
It is. It is. You don't have to always be the rah-rah guy. As long as you do your job, as long as you I guess an example would be in Edmonton when we were down 1-0. And if you go down 2, it's hard. And he wouldn't let Edmonton score. He just simply wouldn't do it. And then our club found its legs and got going and then dominated the last half of the hockey game. But Bob, to me, is a man that he's a good person. His family life is well structured. His work habits are second to none. You've got some others over the years. Dominic Hasek comes to mind. Mike Richter comes to mind. Patrick Waugh. A lot of these guys who worked, just they're relentless in how they pursue the excellence that they need to be at the top of their game. And then for Bob, I know internally it just tore him up the way things went last season, and he deserves a great deal of credit for being a major part of the team, for finding his game again, and being as professional as he is. And it's nice to go into games when you're not even worried about that position. And not every night's going to be a great night for him. That's sports. But boy, it's nice to go into games when you know that I don't have to worry about goaltending. It's been sensational.
We're talking with President of Hockey Operations, John Davidson. And last year, when you were forced early on to make a coaching change, and you brought in John Tortorella, there were obviously a lot of people in the league, and I'm talking about media people, eyebrows raised. Oh, is that really the direction you want to go? You want to bring in a guy like that? But now you go a year plus and you look at it, and John is somebody that you had a relationship with anyway from back in your days in New York. How good was that choice for you to bring in that guy to try to, what Jody said, change the culture you had?
There's reality involved in Todd Richards. It's interesting. People think that when you have a dismissal or change the position with someone else, that you're never going to talk to each other again, blah, blah. I must have played golf 12 times this summer with Todd Richards, one of the all-time great human beings I've ever met, and certainly did his best here, but everything just crashed at once, and he understands that. We understood it. We needed a change, and then when you change at that time of the season, you don't know how many people are going to be available at the end of the season, so you got to really make a choice. Get your way through it and see what happens, or if you see somebody you like, make that decision. We did a lot of homework, and the couple of the things that really swung in our favor. One was that a lot of the people who he had coached with told us how much they learned from Torts. The other was we talked to a lot of people, and Freddie Modine would be one right in Columbus, about what kind of coach is he, blah, blah, blah. the majority of the guys we talk to say he's the best coach we ever played for. And these are high-end players. These are character players. These are winners, all these guys that we talk to. Not the guys that are not playing too much or who've been benched who are like seagulls and start flapping in the wind. I don't respect them. Their opinions, I don't respect what they have to say because they never put the onus on themselves. It's always somebody else's fault. The great players who want to win know what it takes. Again, I'll go back to Messier. That's exactly what he was like. And so that really helped us with our decision. And then Torts himself knew that he wanted another chance. You know, he'd been through a lot, self-inflicted wounds all over the place, no question about it. He admits that. But most people don't know the man on the inside. And he's driven, he's smart, he's really worked at trying to feather things a little bit more than he had in the past, which is very important for him and for us and the franchise. And I think it's been a real good fit for us. Just the idea of he treats the players like men. It's their room. They have communication, but you can sense that he's helped create that culture change that we were looking for, without question.
JD, you talked about scouting earlier, and I'm amazed to watch you operate because you watch practice on a daily basis. You go out and scout games in those tough towns and small town Canada. And as president of hockey operations, people don't maybe expect you to do that. And for you to do that and now see this team where it's at, how much fun are you having watching this grow in this first part of the season?
It's satisfying, Jody. It's you love to see progress. Like I was saying earlier, last season that was tough. But then when Cleveland won, at least we had something to hang our hat on because they won it the right way, and the young people who were hoping, and there's more to come, were going to graduate and be part of our club. They excelled. And they were young players. So that really gave us something good. Myself with hockey, it's the greatest game in the world for me. I've been at it in the NHL since 73. So if you don't go, like I can go into Saskatoon or Regina or someplace in Quebec and see these junior kids, but I can't sit in the meetings. I'll say, yeah, I saw him. He was a good player, but I can't sit there and tell these guys if I think he's going to be this or that. That's a science. They're looking at 18-year-old kids, and they have to determine if these kids are going to be NHL players or not. That's an art. But I like to support our scouts. I like to get a feeling for what they do for a job. I like to go watch pro games too, whether it be the American League. I love going to Cleveland. It's a great rink. It's a good league. And then games in our league itself. Through the television, you can watch just about every game every night. And it's sometimes you're one eye open at 1 a.m. watching the West Coast games, but you learn, you sense, you see what's going on, you see how teams play, see how coaches coach. You never know what happens down the road. You may get a call for some trade and Yarmo's the same way, Billy Zito's the same way, Basil McRae's in Russia right now checking out a defenseman, Gavrikov, who's a member of our team or our organization through the draft. And want to see how he is right now. He's going to play 4 games for the national team over there. So we got to know. So Basil's gets his passport, 19 airplanes and time changes, and he's in Russia watching. You got to do this stuff. And if you don't have people that do that, you're not going to beat the other people because as good as the people are in this business, you're still in a we got to beat you business. So you've got to know what goes on in the world. Jarmo just got back from Finland. And Sweden. He was over there seeing a number of our prospects. The one draft choice, Stenlund. He's a big centerman, about 6'3", and a heavy guy. He's really excelling, really doing well. Vili Sirin and Chris Morehouse, our 2 top amateur scouts, were just out west and saw Turkov play, another draft pick. He was the Western League Player of the Week. They're raving about him. So I sit here and I look at guys like Carlson that we've got coming, the ones that are almost automatic. Then you wonder about the other guys. When you hear 3 or 4 stories, because we've had eyes on them there and checking their progress, I'm elated about what our future is for the organization.
And that's amazing to me because, Bob, and you might know this because we've been on the bus together, as a player at the back of the bus, you have no idea. And it really amazes me the amount of work that goes into an organization, and it's relentless. It doesn't stop.
We have a computer system called RinkNet, and I go on there every morning when I go into the office, and the scouts, once they've scouted a game, generally go back to their hotel rooms and file their reports. So you can go in there and check where the scouts are and see game reports from all over the world. And you can see, and they basically really look at the players to be scouted or the players that we already have property of. And it's fascinating to read that. Then you go on the computer and you find out how Elvis Merzlikins is playing in Lugano, Switzerland. You look at Dansk, how he's playing over in Sweden. These are goaltenders. And I love to try to figure out I can't figure out the Swedish language too well, or the Swiss, but there's some words I'm starting to figure out. And so you figure out the scores, you find the game reports, you read things about them. It's fascinating. It's huge, but it's interesting how you can do that all computer-wise and stay with it. Last winter, I actually grabbed my wife, and we went over to Switzerland. We went into Zurich, and I saw Austin Matthews play. Went up to Davos, which is about a 2-hour drive way up in the mountains, a beautiful area, and saw Merzlikins play there. And then we drove down to Lugano, which is on a big lake towards Italy. They've actually got palm trees there, and I don't know how the heck that happened, but they do. And saw Merzlikins play there. He was fast. He was really good. Then we went and had dinner with him, and he and his girlfriend. And it was, you got to do these things. If you don't do these things, and they don't have this feeling that there's some love coming from across the pond, it doesn't help. So you got to do it. And that Matthews was pretty good. I got to tell you, the kid he went number 1 to Toronto. It was a men's league, and he was pretty good.
We're sitting here talking with Blue Jackets president of hockey operations, John Davidson, and we'll continue the conversation right after this on 97.1 The Fan. Welcome back to the Inside Edge here on 97.1 The Fan. I'm Bob McElligott along with Jody Shelley, and we continue our conversation right now with Blue Jackets president of hockey operations, John Davidson. I've got to ask you where your team sits right now, and I know there's a long way to go, but now the decisions that'll have to be talked about is do you go outside and do you add? If you're going to get into the playoffs, do you need to add pieces? What are you willing to give up? And then you have that expansion draft that's coming up this year too. So how does that factor into any decisions that you might make when you're trying to enhance this team?
Very, very good question. I think that what we've got planned ahead of us are 2 or 3 different think tanks with all our group. We'll get together off-site somewhere around Columbus and just go at it for the full day. No cell phones, nothing. Just go at it and figure out. I mean, we're in a position with the expansion draft as of now. We're going to lose a decent player, a good player. But maybe there's ways around that. So we've got to explore and figure out what Vegas is thinking and how we can avoid some of that stuff. We've got to figure out who's going to come to the team and perhaps make the team. It's hard to judge on some players simply because you take a Nutravara, for instance. I mean, I don't think any of us in this room right now thought he was going to be here this season. And if he did, it wouldn't be for long. Boom, 7th-round pick. He's playing for your team, and the kid he's a special kid, this kid. You know, a lot of other people get the attention. Dubois, the pick, will he be with his club next year? There's many different ways of trying to figure out replacement parts. That's part of our job, is to project. As far as our team goes here, I think that a lot of that stuff comes down to how good. I mean, when you have a team concept, you got to be careful about bringing somebody in it just may set the balance off a little bit. Will there be injuries? Probably, but will there be injuries where we have to look at finding somebody because of injuries to figure that out? Jarmo was going to Cleveland to watch them play and keep the updates going. Bjorkstrand will probably end up going back, and so we'll watch him. We'll watch Milano. We'll watch Hannakainen, who's been good. So these things all have to fit. It's a giant puzzle, and we're going to look at every option for sure. But I can say this much going into where we are right now, and that's a long way from the trade deadline. But it's nice to be in a position where you're not thinking about, okay, should we move this fella? Should we move that guy or this guy? Now we're looking at it from the other side of the spectrum. And that at least is it's something good because it's new, and it's something new, and that's real good. You know what I mean?
You mentioned Pierre-Luc Dubois, and since last night we played in Edmonton, and Jesse Puljujarvi was playing against you. You guys took a little bit of heat in the draft. I mean, again, experts, quote unquote, were wondering why you took the guy that you did. But as this season has unfolded, and your team is very good, how much does the fact that Alexander Wenberg has really stepped up his game filled that hole as a top-line centerman, allowed Dubois to go back to junior and continue to work on his craft. How much has that just kind of smoothed a lot of things over for the organization?
That's been very beneficial. Interesting, last season, at the end of the season, we have what we call exit meetings. So the players after the season come in and sit down with the management group and talk about their season. And Wenberg came in with a pair of shorts and kind of a muscle shirt type thing on and sat there. And I looked and I go, geez, man, I didn't realize it. He's getting big. And way bigger than he had been the year before, and I didn't realize it. So it hit me that, all right, now we're seeing the maturity of a body, the evolution of a body. He's always had an intelligent game, especially defensively, very intelligent offensively, but he had to get stronger and bigger. So I had a feeling that, okay, I'm a lot more comfortable now knowing what we have for him to play at a high level in this league. And, boy, he's been every bit of it. He's been really good. With the draft, I think that there's a lot of players they're going to be really good players. We're going to see one with Tkachuk here in Calgary. This kid's good. We needed a centerman winger, characters off the charts. You know, we'll all know in 3 or 4 years where it all sits. But the honest answer about all that is we knew there was 2 automatics, absolute automatics, and that was Matthews and Laine. After that, there's a lot of players there that are in a very close group. Puljujarvi's a good player. Tkachuk's a good player. There's many others down the ladder there, up the ladder, that are going to be very good players. Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be a very good player. And so we've lived it. I've lived it before. I remember when we drafted Pietrangelo in St. Louis, we took a lot of heat. We sent him back to the juniors twice. And Tyler Myers, who went after him, had a terrific year right away. So a lot of, you get zinged all the time. I'm sorry, but Pietrangelo is a pretty good player right now. But it takes time, and you have to just sort of bite your lip and let people, and that makes the world go round too. People having ideas and opinions. And the draft it's a tough business, but we're very comfortable with Dubois.
You've mentioned a lot of great names. It sounds like the cupboards are stocked here for the new future, and we talk about the young guys a lot. But you're veterans, and you spoke of Wenberg. That's a huge step that he took this year, a huge part of this organization. But the one guy to me that is so valuable to this organization and the step he took and the personal changes is Nick Foligno, your captain. I watch him, and he's in a different place. I mean, he had off-ice issues, his daughter, his family life. There were some issues that we don't even know he was dealing with. But the way he's grabbed this group and took it a step, how proud are you of him and what he's done?
Absolutely huge. On the ice and off the ice. He represents our organization extremely well. It was interesting. 2 years ago at those same exit meetings that we have, players wanted a captain. We knew we wanted a captain, but we didn't. You don't want to give it to somebody and have to take it away in 2 years or something along those lines. But the majority of the players that came in, and it was orchestrated, you could tell, but they wanted Nick Foligno to be captain. I mean, it wasn't hard to come in and see Artem Anisimov sit there. How you doing, Artie? How was your year? No, not bad. I was injured. We need a captain. It should be Nicky. It was a classic. So Nicky got the job. And then there was a lot of different things he had to deal with. There's no question. On the ice, off the ice, his own play, the pressure of the whole thing. It just. But when you know the man's character and you know that our group, and it's still to this day hard to explain what happened last season. It really is. There's no definitive answer, no one thing. But he's matured with it. He stayed with it. He's a good liaison between the players and management. The players listen to him. And then when I've seen him a couple of times this season have to do what he does on the ice with the big kid Reeves in St. Louis, that's what leadership is. And so we're in a real good place there. Our veterans, we were trying to make sure we create the winning culture. And the veterans, some of them had to change too. And every single one of them has. We have, as a management group sitting here right now mid-December, we don't have one bit of maintenance to worry about. We don't have players that are getting a little less ice time whining and complaining. We got guys who know their roles. We've got guys stepping up. I credit Sam Gagner for coming in and finding a way to rekindle his game after having a very healthy summer to work out. I credit Scott Hartnell for it was a different organization for him when he came here. Things were just different, but he's really bought in. He's been a good teammate for these guys. Brandon Dubinsky, same way. And when they're like that, young people see it and they grow up in your organization the right way. You know, we talk about the real young players, you know, the Nutravaras and the Werenskis, et cetera. Then you go up just a little bit older, just a little bit to the Wenbergs and the Seth Jones and David Savards and these guys. All in all, to see our team play like it has, have a belief that it has, being as young as it is, it's a good thing.
Well, JD, we appreciate all this time. We really do. Thanks for taking it for us. And hey, it's been a great ride so far. It was great to get on that plane last night and have smiles and laughter. We were talking about it. We've been on that plane. It's been like a library so many times. It was so great to be on there last night, and it's great to be a part of this. So thank you very much, and continued best of luck.
I appreciate it very much. I always one of those guys. It's still early. It's real early, but we're going in the right direction. And you guys should go rent a Tahoe or some kind of vehicle, 4-wheel drive, and go skiing, huh?
Well, who knows? We might do that tomorrow because it's another day without a game. Blue Jackets and Flames don't play until Friday night here in Calgary. That's going to wrap up another edition of The Inside Edge. For Jody, Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott. Thanks for listening here on 97.1 The Fan.